Hello again, and what is hip? And welcome to my kind of first impressions of Fire Emblem Engage with a take from an individual who has never played a Fire Emblem game before. I think I'm coming into this with a slightly different perspective than most, since a lot of the reviews and things I've seen about this game have been from people who played Three Houses first and then played Engage. And from what I've seen, they're two similar games, but there are some pretty major differences in some categories. So I wanted to kind of give you my view on this game from someone who has not been influenced by Fire Emblem Three Houses. So I will be judging this game completely on its own, with no comparisons to any other Fire Emblem game. So let's get started. My history with Fire Emblem is very brief, as I just explained. I have never played any of the Fire Emblem games. I played about 30 minutes of Three Houses, and that was it. So I don't really count that as playing that game. But I have a very long history with strategy and tactical RPGs ever since I was a kid, and it started on the PC. I played this game called The Settlers, which was a strategy tactical game. And I have Civilization, which is another turn-based strategy game, the Shining Force series on the Sega Saturn, Shining Force 3 in particular, I've played some of and really enjoyed. And this game called Dragon Quest Wars on the Nintendo DS iWare shop, which was kind of a unique tactical game as well, turn-based tactical overhead view kind of game, similar in vein to Fire Emblem. So I have a deep love of strategy games, and when I saw the gameplay footage and the reveal for Fire Emblem Engage, I was instantly hooked. And as you can see, I have the collector's edition here, and what drew me to this instantly was the art style. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It's full of color. It's super in your face. It's very anime, which usually I'm not too big of a fan of. I don't like it usually when a game is too in your face anime. But you know, the way that this art works with the eye-popping colors, I think works really, really well. And as you can see here, this is the steelbook that came with the collector's edition. It's beautiful. This is probably the most beautiful steelbook I own. And I'll show some brief footage of the collector's edition, but it comes with some wonderful art cards, and it's just really, really beautiful. I've always loved the art style for Fire Emblem. Every single game that's come out, I've appreciated the beauty of this series from afar, but the music and the art I just love, and I feel like this game really comes in strong with a really beautiful in-your-face art style. And compared to Three Houses, from what I've seen, I was much more drawn to this art style with all the colors. The very brief amount of time I played Three Houses, it was very dull, very bland, and it didn't draw me in from an art perspective, I should say. And I like darker style games. The Persona series, the Shin Megami Tensei series, one of my favorite series of all times, is known for being overtly dark. Not just story, but in colors and in art style as well. Something about Three Houses just didn't really hook me with the art style, but Engage absolutely did. And let's get into the story here from what I've played. So I've played about 15 hours of this game, and there's going to be no spoilers. Everything I show and talk about is going to be from the early game, so no major plot spoilers or anything like that. So from the reviews I've seen, it's that the story is not really there. especially in comparison to Three Houses. But from what I've played, I'm actually very engaged with these characters and the story thus far. I actually, maybe it's because I'm a total wuss, but there was a moment very early on in the game where I dare I say I almost had a tear in my eye, and I think it was primarily from the voice acting. It was really, really good in this moment, and I was like, oh wow, was not expecting that. But I could be a total wuss, so take that with a grain of salt. But the story from very, very early on, it's there's the divine dragon, and there's the fell dragon, and the fell dragon has been reincarnated, and you have to go out and destroy the fell dragon. So that's pretty much the story in a nutshell. At least that's what I've been explained thus far in the game, the very, very short amount of time that I've played. And I will say the story is pretty basic, but what makes it stand out are the characters, and the characters are really, really wonderful. The voice acting in this game is great. I will say the voice acting for the main protagonist, the male protagonist, is not my preferred. I think he sounds a little cheesy at times. I like the female voice actor much more than the male. But from what I've seen, or from what I've looked up, apparently the different genders can change some interactions in the story. I don't know for a fact. So I went with the male character, even though I do like the female voice actor much more, voice actress. And but the characters, all the characters in this game are extremely colorful and extremely well designed. And the writing is spot on. There have been multiple times where I've laughed out loud while playing this game, and that's not necessarily easy for a game to do, at least for me. Usually I'll chuckle inside my head, but I've actually laughed out loud a couple of times with the writing in this game, and the characters all just are pouring out with personality and charm. It's all really wonderful, and I want to get to know each character. And one of the main differences between this game and Fire Emblem Three Houses is that Three Houses was much more of a social simulator, very similar in vein to the Persona series, which I love. And I know for a fact that I would love that social simulation in Fire Emblem Three Houses, where each action takes up a moment of time throughout a day, and you can only do so many actions within a day before having to move on. And there's different days of the week and such. That is not present in Fire Emblem Engage. There is no day system, there is no time limit. You can still only do so many actions within a certain day, but as soon as you go to a battle of some sort and come back, it all resets, like collecting items from an animal or talking to one of the characters. But there is some sort of social simulation within this game, albeit very basic. But from what I've seen, much more in depth than prior Fire Emblem games, pre-Three Houses, so the DS ones, 3DS, the Famicom and stuff like that. So you can hang out with your comrades, you can make meals and have meals with your comrades, which is really fun. And you can talk to them. You have your hub, your home base, and each day, or every time you go to sleep, or every time you leave and come back, you can find your comrades in different areas doing different things, which doesn't do much on an actual gameplay basis, but just from like a personal kind of immersion basis, it's kind of cool to see your characters, your friends, doing different things and kind of living their own life. It's very small, but it's a nice touch, and I appreciate it very much. And yeah, so the actual character social simulation is very light, but I think it's just enough to be engaging, and it's not too overpowering either, because a lot of times when it comes to social situations or social simulations, I become much more focused on those than maybe the actual main gameplay itself. And I think that can be a downside of having a really in-depth social simulation in a game. So I think this game actually has a very sweet, perfect balance between the two, of focusing more on gameplay, but just adding enough social simulation to really get you connected to these really wonderfully designed characters. And I've only met a handful, and from what I've seen, there's a lot more to find out and discover. So it's all really exciting. Every single character I've met has been an absolute joy. So moving on to the actual gameplay, I've touched on this a little bit. So yeah, you have a very light social simulation, but the main meat and potatoes of a Fire Emblem game is the actual tactical battles. And let me tell you, these battles are so incredibly engaging. Let's put up a counter for how many times I've used the word engage in this video. But the actual battles themselves are just so well crafted and so incredibly addicting. It's a kind of like a rock, paper, scissors kind of aspect, where axes are good against lances, and swords are good against axes, and lances are good against swords or axes. I can't say it all off the top of my head, but that's kind of the gameplay aspect. So if you beat one where like a sword is good against an axe, or vice versa, that person that you're attacking becomes disarmed. You break them, and so that means they can't attack you back that same turn during your attacking phase. And so that's a really cool strategic element. So it really forces you to think about, okay, I'm going to have this character here, but this character is better against this character. And it really makes you think 2 to 3 steps ahead sometimes, and it's really, really thought-provoking, and it's a really, really strong addition to this game, and I really like that. And from what I've heard, I don't think Three Houses had that. I could be wrong, but the battles are really, really well thought out. The graphics for these battles are wonderful. But when you have your top overhead view, and then when you go into the attacking mode, it kind of zooms in seamlessly into your character, and you see all of the attacks and the magic and the moves, and it looks really, really great. And the music as well also seamlessly moves into like a battle music when you start attacking. It's really, really cool, and it's really high quality. There were even a couple instances where you attack someone and you have them fly back, and they fly into fences or walls and they break them. And I was very surprised with the amount of detail that was put into these attack sequences. It was really, really refreshing to see, because they could have easily, if not have done that, could have totally ignored that and nobody would have batted an eye. So really just that extra added sense of polish was really, really appreciated. And I find myself wanting to do more battles and to do battle after battle after battle, rather than focusing on a social simulation. I don't miss the social simulation at all. In fact, I'm almost happy that there's not, and there's more of an emphasis on the actual tactical RPG-ness of this game. So I'm happy it is so light. It's really, really, really nice, and there's a lot of customization to this game. So the main thing about this game, the gimmick, as you can say, is that you have these rings, and each ring is a different Fire Emblem character from the past. And going into this game, I was not sure how I felt about that. I thought it was a little bit of almost like a cash grab of sorts, you know, kind of gimmicky, like, oh, it's fan service. Boy, how wrong was I. I still think using past Fire Emblem characters is a little bit cheesy. I think maybe it could have been something else. I also don't have that connection to all of those past Fire Emblem characters either, so maybe my opinion doesn't really count as much in that aspect, since I really don't have a connection to these prior characters. But this is implemented so incredibly well. So each ring is a different Fire Emblem character, and each ring has a different ability. And you can put the rings on any of your characters, and it gives them a different Engage ability. That's where the name comes from. So during battle, you'll have a ring. Say you have Marth. You put it on, and you press the Engage button, and it kind of boosts your character, transforms them. It's kind of cool. And you get special abilities and usually a special attack. And with Marth, I think it's called the Lodestar ability. It's this super, super strong piercing attack. It's really cool how this implements, because it totally changes the character. And there's another one where if you have a character who rides a horse or something of the sort, and you give them this ring, the Engage ability grants them the ability to basically move anywhere on the board. It increases their movement by quite a lot, versus if you give it to someone without the horse, it doesn't give them as much movement. And some rings are more suited for characters with lances, and it's really, really cool. And each Fire Emblem ring has a different social rank, so you can talk to these rings just like you can your comrades, and you can boost these characters' ranks up to level 10, at least from what I've seen so far. And as you boost them up, it gives you more special abilities, but when you reach level 5, it gives you the ability to inherit these skills. And what that means is your characters can inherit one or two abilities from these rings without having to wear the rings. So one of the abilities of Marth's ring is perceptiveness, I think, something along those lines, where it boosts, I think, accuracy or maybe evasion or something of the sort by like 10-20%. So you can inherit that ability to somebody who has at least a level 5 bond with the Marth ring, and you can have them take that perceptiveness ability and not wear the ring. And it's really cool, and it adds a whole different layer of customization, and it encourages you to not only boost your bond with the ring with your character, but with other characters as well. And each other character also has these different interactions with these Fire Emblem ring characters, and it's really cool, and it's all unique. And another thing you can do is from those rings you can craft other rings, and it makes these basically, because there are only, I think, 12 or so Fire Emblem character rings in the game, and there's more than 12 characters that you can use in battle. So you can create these lesser rings from the Fire Emblem rings, and those rings have some slight status boosts and stuff, and you can equip those to your other characters. But then you can meld the rings and create more rings. It's crazy the amount of customization there is to this game, and that's just with the characters. When it comes to weapons, it's the similar thing. You can inscript your character weapons with the abilities of the Fire Emblem rings, and it's crazy. There's so much customization to this game that I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around everything there is to do. And it's so incredibly well crafted. And I can't speak for Three Houses. I don't know if it was a similar thing there, but at least with this game, it's among the best I've seen in a strategy game. And I've played my fair share of strategy games, and it's done really, really well. And I'm so incredibly addicted with the amount of customization that there is. So that's pretty much my thoughts on Fire Emblem Engage. I've never played any other Fire Emblem game before, and from what I've played so far, about the 10-15 hours I'm in, it's so incredibly engaging. I am full on addicted. It's hard for a game to really pull me in right away, especially with a strategy game. I kind of have to usually work my way into the strategy game to become really involved with it. But Fire Emblem Engage hooked me within the first hour. I was hooked with the characters and the art and the gameplay, primarily the gameplay, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. There's so many different variety of gameplay elements. Like after you beat a battle, you go into this like roaming mode where you can roam around the town or the battlefield that you just won, and you can talk to different characters and collect items. It's so cool. And then there's the social simulation aspect, which is light, but it's there, and I think it's there in the perfect amount. And the music is great, phenomenal even. The music that plays in your room on your hub is one of my favorite tracks in the game. It's really, really wonderful. And I would say so far it's a 9 out of 10 game. It's really, really well made. I think it's the perfect balance between tactical RPG and kind of social simulation. There are some things in the game that I think could be better. Like there's some meaningless activities that you could do in your hub. There's this little spirit animal thing, which is really funny. It follows you around the hub, and you can get some items from it if you do these kind of mundane tasks where it's like you go up to it and you pet it, or you go up and you feed it, and it just kind of takes a long time. Dare I say unnecessary. Like it was kind of fun the first 2 times, but then it just kind of takes time out of your day, and like that can get a little repetitive. There are the conversations that you have with your Fire Emblem Ring characters kind of leaves a lot to be desired. The conversations with your actual comrades are phenomenal, but the actual Ring characters, they don't talk much. There's not too much there, and you don't see a bond really grow as your bond level increases. So I think that could have been really improved upon as well. But those are pretty much my only gripes of the game. Otherwise, I would say it's nearly perfect. I mean, this is really a strategy RPG lover's dream. It's well made. It reminds me of the old Shining Force games on the Genesis, Sega CD, the Sega Saturn. Like this is an old school style game. It's really, really wonderful, and it's such a breath of fresh air in a world full of these new games that are really starting to focus on the social simulation kind of cozy aspects, which are wonderful in their own right. But then in a game like Fire Emblem, Fire Emblem at its heart is not a social simulation. It is a tactical RPG, and this game is a tactical RPG. It has it where it counts, and there's a little bit of something in here for everyone, I think. It's not the strongest story, but the voice acting is great, and the characters are wonderful as well. And you don't need a super confusing, in-depth story to make an engaging story and an engaging game. I mean, look at Ocarina of Time. That's one of the greatest games of all time. By today's standards, the story isn't totally crazy, but it's still a very strong story. And this game, again, not a super in-depth story, but it doesn't need to be. And the story gives us a mission, it's there, and we have a goal. And we have some wonderful characters trying to achieve this goal, participating in some amazing gameplay along the way. So that was my kind of first impressions on Fire Emblem Engage. It's really wonderful. I really think you should give it a chance because there's just something in my mind telling me that this game is gonna be cursed to be like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where it goes out of print and then it becomes really expensive and nobody gets to play it at a reasonable price anymore, even though this is an amazing game that deserves your attention. So thank you so much, guys, for watching this video and listening to my thoughts. Have you played Fire Emblem Engage yet? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you like Three Houses more? Does this not hold up to generations past Fire Emblem games? Let me know. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one.